Alrighty, so week 8 is upon us. For week 7 attendance, we talked about and had you draft your Flexbox and grid layouts. And so now, for our second item on this week, we'll be looking at media queries. So then this attendance, which I'll do next, will be focused on getting you started there. So I already have the instruction for this one up. So in this case, right, where our goal is to refactor your existing phase 3 into responsive design using media queries, add a page, make images responsible, and add some accessibility. There's our standard setup. Now in this case, we'll have you probably set this up. You will set this up during attendance, right, to just do the layout part of it. But if you're doing them around the same time, you just make sure you're copying those things over. Now, do make sure you fix any issues before you get started and then telling me, right, fixing phase 3. But really, and this is what you may have seen with in this case, phase 2 that I've graded already. But actually in phase 1, I'm thinking about the time, is that I will generally review and then give you until the next day to fix things. But this is where the earlier you submit, the better it is. Okay. So yes, most of what this is for this time is both planning out and implementing your media queries, your breakpoints, what standards you're going to use. So Dave gave us a couple standards, so you'll need to choose one of those standards that you will use. And in this case, I've just linked to his. I actually tried out a couple. I ended up with Tailwind because I just thought it looked better for what my site was. But what you will need to do is choose one, and you will do that in your documentation. Okay, so first, now again, just like Flexbox and Grid, you can change these things, but you'll just need to do commits showing me you've made your changes. And when I grade, part of what I'm looking for is, do you have all those breakpoints in there, those media queries in there, and do they respond, right? And this is the statement here. Respond to the different screen sizes by adjusting the nav, the content, right? So maybe switching from stacked, right, to columns, something like that, and fonts, and then resizing your images. Now, in this case, let me just show you how mine ended up. So here is, we could go to even wider, right? And this is the really cool thing. And remember, Dave showed about, like, if I didn't want to see my breakpoints, right? If I just wanted to look at the standard, I could do those as well. But one of the things I like to do, and this is generally what I will do when I first pull your site, is I will just start pulling it slowly, and then look at, okay, so I see changes in the images. I see that I have some grid, and then I have some things floating. So, and then in this case, boom, once you get small enough, then those things all collapse on it, or not, they just are then stacked, right? So that's the idea, right? So just looking at things. Also, the images are responding to the different page sizes. I wouldn't say that's the most elegant way I had done that. It pops a little too much. I probably would adjust maybe the way that ends up maybe not at 100%. But it does respond, and that's really what we're looking for here is, and I will first look at this, and it needs to be both your, and I talk about this, right, your nav and your content itself, and then your images, right? So that's just an example of how I've done it. So the first thing you're going to do, and actually I will have you draft this in attendance, but is, plan. Take your plan from phase 3, right? Tell us what breakpoints you're going to, or in there, put a heading for standard. It should be standards. I'll update that. You will follow as far as the ones I listed from Dave. Which of those are you going to follow? Add a heading for my responsive using media queries, and then copy the layout from your layout that you did for phase 3, and then apply content to show how you're going to change that, right? How you're going to modify that based on that. And I'm not going to give you an example here. I'm going to let you kind of just, basically integrate that how you want, as long as I see it in your output, right? So, and again, this here, update the layout to include how your layout will change in the different media blocks. So you can both show it on the outline as well. And then here's your commit for that. And then if you revisit it, right? So that's the thing is like before, I would expect this to change over time as you kind of, here's my plan, but of course I may change it. And boy, did I change mine over time. And then add a new page, and in this case, like we did last week, not a new menu page, but some other page, and make sure it shows up on your site. I think I added, what was mine that I added to my sitemap, and I knew actually I needed, and notice, I'm noticing it's very slow here. I actually needed to do a little bit of an outline to show this. Actually, it was something I'm working on, but in this case, you want to have your sitemap listing that page that you've added. And again, making sure you're also using a similar, and you can use one of your other subpages, updating content for it, but you still, and I am moving into the next item because this is just to maintain whatever content you've added. If you've changed things, make sure you're still there. Make sure you have no untitled, and don't use divs much at all. And then make images responsive, right? So this is the idea. Scale them as correctly as possible. Here's that update to the site map. Make sure you do that. And then, we've already added a bit of accessibility just by adding these HTML and using these sections correctly, right? But make sure all your images have alt. I probably will have checked those, but just in case, maintain a clear heading hierarchy using styles. Ensure link text is meaningful. That's always important. Make sure text has enough color contrast. Now, like before, your commit should tell me a story. It should not, if I only see a couple of commits, and I'm not actually going to give you the number this time, but I can tell you what I'm going to look at is, do your commits reflect a specific feature you're trying to work on. If I only saw 2 commits, probably not a good idea because you're doing a bit more in this case, a lot more actually. So make sure they're incremental. Show your progress step by step. Now you can make comments also, do include them also in your CSS for your major media queries. Now at this point I'm going to have you keep your media queries inside your style.css. It is fairly common that you might put them in a different one, but for our purposes I'm not going to do that. So in this case, here's how this is graded. Okay, so that's your overview of this project, and so now I'll go work on attendance. Reach out. Again, submitting early is really helpful, and it gives you a chance to fix things sooner rather than later. I'll talk to you later.